I'm back to Renewt, another movie. Basically, this series is I pitch how I would reboot a particular film franchise or a sequel or standalone, whatever. And I gotten some good suggestions. Um, and one that this is actually one that inspired this whole concept because this is an idea I've had since Terminator 3. I've been thinking about this idea. There's a really famous deleted scene from the movie where they show Schwarzenegger as a general in the army, and it's his body that they use for the Terminator. And I was really taken by the idea of Skynet choosing this guy. But because it's a deleted scene, it's not really canon. So I thought, okay, what would be a really cool idea um, to do for that? And then this idea I'm going to tell you, coupled with the most recent Predator movie, Prey, where it is essentially a standalone story. It's a very different breed of the Predator. And I think that's kind of the direction that these kind of movies need to go in now. Is you had years and years of Star Wars comic books, be it from Marvel to Dark Horse, then back to Marvel, where there's all these characters that are not Skywalkers, not the main, not the original trilogy characters, or not the prequel series. All these other facets and places in the universe, this huge mass galaxy, yet we only focus on like a handful of people. And all these comics over the years told these stories in these other pockets. And I thought that they were kind of doing that a little bit with the Disney shows like The Mandalorian and stuff, and playing a little bit more in the world of Rebels. But again, they always have to come back to the Darth Vaders and Luke Skywalkers and shit like that because that's what people know. But same thing with the Terminator. The Terminator started in Now Comics in the mid to late 80s because I was a big fan of Now Comics. They did like Speed Racer comics, the real Ghostbusters based on the cartoon. They did Married with Children comics, Racer X, Fright Night, whole bunch of different stuff. And apparently they treated their writers and artists like shit. And but the Terminator comics that they did is where I first saw Alex Ross's artwork for the first time, who went on to do Kingdom Come and Marvels and one of the modern day Norman Rockwell essentially. But there was all these Terminator comics that started there, and then they went over to Dark Horse as well. But they were telling stories that revolved around the Skynet and the repercussions of Skynet and all the characters that are not John Connor and not Sarah Connor and all the characters that they have to keep shoving together because it's all that people will accept in these franchises. It's like why Halloween 3 didn't work, because people just refuse anything but the same story over and over and over again. Except for Halloween Ends, which I don't know how that got greenlit. Like, we're going to take this thing and go, oh yeah, Corey Cunningham, it's fine. It's essentially just a remake of Christine, but I digress. So, if you're going to go forward with Terminator movies at this point, I would not make them a connected franchise. I would do stories in different places that revolve around the war in the future or things that lead to the creation of Skynet, like stuff like that. So my main idea was about one of the first times that they tried time travel, that Skynet does, to send a soldier back to stop, John Connor from being able to stop Skynet. And they send it back too far. And they send it back to the late 1960s in Tucson, Arizona. And we meet Candy. That was the character that Schwarzenegger was playing in that deleted scene of Terminator 3. He's been dishonorably discharged from the military, sent home from Vietnam. This is a guy who was born in Germany at the time of Adolf Hitler. and he was a Hitler Youth as a child because that's all he knew. His family knew. Much like Schwarzenegger as well, when he told the story about his father after World War II, like what Austrian men went through in the wake of the National Socialist Party. So this is a guy who's known violence and war his entire life. He got out of Germany, came to America with his family, enlisted, fought in the Korean War, was sent to Vietnam. Jungle warfare, violence is his entire life. And he finally just snapped. And he's sent home, and he's having a very, very hard time adjusting to life stateside. He's become very much this shell of who he was. And at the same time, a Terminator is sent back. But this is the T-100. So they have a very uncanny valley look to them. Skynet hasn't quite mastered the human form while through time travel. So it doesn't take long for Schwarzenegger, who is seen as being, paranoid, and for when he sees that something is going on, everyone thinks he's crazy, and then it eventually becomes suburban warfare. Essentially, it's almost like if you took the movie Red Dawn, the original Red Dawn, Wolverines, and combine that with a science fiction story where Schwarzenegger now has to basically fight this machine from the future while dealing with PTSD and the strains of that, and now putting lives stateside at risk. So it's him basically guerrilla warfare in the streets of Tucson, Arizona in the late 1960s. And, the people who do believe him and do rally around him, trying to fight this thing that they don't quite understand. And my whole idea was leading up to the very, very end, where as he kills this fucking thing, it does a wire scan of his face before it logs off, and it sends that back to Skynet, and Skynet then enters that into their database. Now, when they send the next one back to 1984, that's why it looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's sort of like in the comics Doomsday. You can never kill them the same way the next time. It remembers. And this would be the same kind of thing, where the Terminator now has a better understanding. Like the whole battle, once it was sent back to the wrong time period, now it's more like R&D. It's research and development. It's figuring out humans at this time period, how they fought, because where we meet Skynet in the future, they have laser guns and shit like that, so it would be kind of recon type of thing. So I just thought that would be a really, really cool way to do a standalone Terminator story that takes place in a different time period, and allows Schwarzenegger to be more than the T-800 or Pops and that other one, the Genesis, and actually like act, and be a man, because Schwarzenegger at this point has been to the top, and he's been dragged, through his acting or whatever, and he's a guy, and his speaking out against Trump, he got dragged for that. So I like the idea of just him, because we're probably never going to get a King Conan movie, which I would love, but just that idea of this guy who's been in it, and every line on his face tells a story, and the idea of him like not being able to sleep comfortably in his bed and not ever being comfortable in his surroundings. The only time he is comfortable is when he's fighting, and now you give him a predator that is unlike anything he's ever faced before, and that would be the T-100. And and I just think if you got to that very ending where they scan it and send it back, that would be like a oh fuck moment in the movie for people, because they're like, okay, it's set in the 60s. That's interesting. They did that with the last Indiana Jones movie. But then you get to that point, and then you figure out why they're doing that, and you go, oh, okay, this is feeding into the main narrative, but it doesn't have to be so direct into it. So that's my idea for a Terminator movie, and I've had this idea again since like 2004, I think, when the third one came out, and over time it's just kind of been percolating in my head, just like the Ghostbusters video that I put up. Go watch that one. Of just like how to do it while doing something a little bit different with it, but not being too different that people won't accept it. So yeah, let me know what you thought of my Terminator idea. It's never going to get made. Hollywood's never going to call me, but that's why I want to do this series. Was I got a whole bunch of weird random ideas in my head. Tell me your ideas or what movie you'd like to hear me talk about, and I will talk to you guys next time I renuke something.